We begin in the occupied West Bank, where funerals have been held for two Palestinians allegedly killed by Israeli settlers. The Palestinian Health Ministry says one of the men was shot and the other beaten to death. One of the victims was a dual American citizen. The U.S. State Department says it's aware of the reports. The Israeli military is reviewing both incidents. We are joined now by Mairav Zonszein, senior analyst on Israel-Palestine for the International Crisis Group. Mairav, give us some perspective here. Settler violence in the West Bank is not new, but is there something distinctive or remarkable in any way about the dynamic we see there now, or the period perhaps that they're passing through?
It's good to be with you. Look, like you said, settler violence is not new. And also the West Bank is under Israeli military occupation for decades. So the amount of violence that Palestinians endure there is constant. Certainly after October 7th, it has accelerated. We also have a far-right government with settler ministers in power who are interested in full annexation of the West Bank and expulsion of Palestinians from certain areas. And the settlers are in the service of this policy. So that's also accelerated over the last 2 years. I think what's maybe different here is that we're seeing settler violence that ends in the death of Palestinians. In this case, by basically a lynching of beating to death. I don't know all the details, but that's what we understand has happened. That's different from being shot to death, of course, and that has also happened in greater numbers. And of course, with everything that's happening in Gaza, this kind of story, which would normally be the top headline, is barely getting any attention. And one of them was an American citizen, which you would think would draw serious condemnation, or at least some kind of response from America. And so far, we've had nothing.
You're referencing the brutality of this particular killing. In light of the reported killing of a U.S. citizen, could this incident trigger international scrutiny or diplomatic fallout for Israel?
It doesn't seem that way, because Israel has been killing thousands of Palestinians in Gaza, and it hasn't drawn enough scrutiny for there to be a serious repercussions or a stop to the war. So I don't expect this to happen on a specific incident in the West Bank either. Unfortunately, the amount of death and the outrageous incidents that have happened have become so many and so intense that almost nothing now, draws this, condemnation and gets to stop. I don't know at this point what will. I mean, that's really the problem.
Mairav Zonszein, please stay with us. More questions in a moment. But we should mention to viewers, in Israel, families of the remaining hostages are growing increasingly desperate, demanding the government bring home their loved ones. Let's take a look.
Thousands of Israelis demanding the return of the hostages held in Gaza. They want an immediate ceasefire to bring home their loved ones.
I'm here to remind everybody that there are 50 more hostages that must come back to Israel, must come back to their families. 20 of them are still alive, and we have to do whatever we can in order to bring them back.
Nearby, a silent vigil. These Israelis are paying tribute to the Palestinian children they say were killed by their own government.
Extremely necessary to show our care and what we want and what we believe in. And we have to show it by showing the pictures of these innocent children that are being killed, just as our innocent civilians were being massacred on October 7th.
The protesters say they're sharing the grief felt in neighboring Gaza.
Well, I'm in pain, and I'm ashamed of what's going on, of what Israel has been doing for almost 2 years now. The genocide in Gaza, the butchery of thousands and thousands of innocent civilians, almost 20,000 children.
The Israeli government denies it is committing genocide. It says it is waging a war against Hamas, which carried out the October 7 terror attacks that killed some 1,200 Israelis. In Gaza, people say they are facing death and destruction every day. According to hospital officials and eyewitnesses, several people were shot dead near 8 distribution sites over the weekend.
My brother was shot in the head. His brain came out. And this is my brother's blood on my leg.
Was the shooting from the tanks or the soldiers?
The soldiers.
The US and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation denies any incident occurred near its aid distribution sites. The UN says around 600 people have been killed near distribution centers in the Gaza Strip since the end of May.
Mairav Zonszein is still with us. I remind our viewers she is senior analyst on Israel-Palestine for the International Crisis Group. Mairav, some Israeli citizens are openly mourning the loss of Palestinian children. Could this mark a shift in public sentiment, and how might it influence future policymaking?
Unfortunately, I don't think it will. We're talking about a very small minority of Israelis within the protest movement that is for a hostage deal and against the government's policies. But they've been protesting for various reasons over the last 2 years. The consensus across, a majority of Israelis polled for months now have wanted an end to the war, and it hasn't moved the needle on the Netanyahu's government's decision-making. As we see more and more and more death and destruction, there, of course, are going to be Israelis who are going to give attention to that and to the human side of things. That's the minimum, I think, that can be done. But there is no political will, no political power in the government here for that to move the needle. It's just not. Even the death of soldiers. Soldiers are being killed in almost daily recently in Gaza. That's not moving the needle for this government either.
I'm curious about your take on this. With conflicting reports on casualties near aid sites, including denials from official sources, how reliable is the current information landscape?
Unfortunately, it's not that reliable because there's a lot of compromising of the freedom of information. Israel has not let journalists into Gaza since the beginning of this war. But we do know that, the Israeli army controls the majority of Gaza right now, and the GHF, which is this Israeli-American, mechanism for providing food, which has been a disaster for the people of Gaza. These are the people that are armed, who have control right now in Gaza. So I believe that if people are being killed, and certainly in such high numbers, it's probably them. It's not Hamas. So this is, regardless of the exact numbers, which are difficult sometimes to ascertain, the bottom line is that Israel is responsible, and Israel's army has oftentimes not taken responsibility or denied or misinformed, and then later on, the proof was shown in reporting. So unfortunately, Hamas is not necessarily a reliable source of information, but the Israeli army is not either.
As you well know, the Israeli government rejects accusations of genocide. But when a sitting Knesset member uses that term, as we saw in our report, how is that being addressed within the political establishment in Israel?
It's not being addressed, and that member of Knesset, Ofer Kasif, is an extreme minority. He's considered fringe. He doesn't represent the public or the Israeli government. We've had, over the course of the last year, various academics, organizations, international courts talking about the fact that Israel may indeed be committing genocide. This is, a legal term. This is something that, various people can argue about, but I think nobody will argue about the fact that Israel is creating total death and destruction in Gaza. And openly, many Israeli officials since October 7th have talked openly about exterminating, expelling, getting rid of Gaza, getting rid of Palestinians, that they're all guilty. This is what we have to deal with. So whatever you want to call it, it's clearly a tragedy. It's ongoing violence, and it's not in the interest of anyone living here for it to go on. That's the bottom line.
Mairav Zonszein, senior analyst on Israel-Palestine for the International Crisis Group, our sincere thanks.